Cześć, witam Was ponownie na moim kanale Vintage Music Geek. Zapraszam na drugą część mojego wywiadu z Rayem Phillipsem, czyli perkusistą i współzałożycielem zespołu Budgie. W tej części Ray opowiedział mi m.in. o tym, jak powstawała przepiękna, monumentalna ballada Parents, w jaki sposób zespół Metallica ocalił Rayowi życie, o tym, czy Ray nadal utrzymuje kontakt z Tonym Bourgem, czyli gitarzystą, z którym współpracował w zespole Budgie, który znany zespół zaproponował Rayowi dołączenie do jego szeregów. Zachęcam Was do subskrybowania, lajkowania, obserwowania mojego kanału Vintage Music Geek. A tymczasem przed Wami Ray Phillips. Życzę Wam miłego oglądania.
You said in one of interviews that Brit fan version of Metallica, when they recorded, it saved your life somehow, yeah?
Right? Well, I'll tell you what happened there. When we put Tredegar together, right, we owned no farmhouse, we owed a very small mortgage on it. But me and Carl took a £25,000 mortgage out on our house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as it went along, the band was going on, we doing all this stuff, and then the guys in the band decided they wanted to knock it on the head. Right? In the end, me and Carl were left with a £25,000 bank loan to pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you know what? For the first time in my life, one night I thought, you know what? And I felt like committing suicide. We had no money, 3 children, and I thought, we're going to lose the farmhouse. Yeah, it's going. I can't stop it. Right? The next thing I know is I had a check through the post, a royalty check come through regards royalties. It was £12,500. And I thought, right, that's it. We put a lump of money to one side. I went down the bank and I said, I want to pay £10,000 off my mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bank charged me £700 to do that. Right? So I had enough money to keep the other payments going. And I had more money that come from Metallica. I went straight on. In the end, I just paid the house off in one hit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I say Metallica actually saved my life. I was ready to do away with myself. And I can now understand, to be in that place, it's such a dark place. And I feel so sorry for anybody who ended up committing suicide because through either mental illness or because there was nobody they could talk to. Nobody wanted to listen to him. It was a dark, dark time. But here we are today, and I'm 77. Yeah, we're having this conversation right now, and I think I'm probably, if I had to, I may be older than you and your wife put together. That's a maybe. Yeah, but here we are talking about something I done all those years ago, which was fabulous. Mm-hmm. And when and then if I can, then one day I was talking about the spiritual stuff. I was told when I was 14 that I would be a musician. I'm just walking. Somebody said, and it just said to me, "You be a musician." But it didn't go, "You be a musician," like voice in my head. You will be a musician. All right. When I was 60, I was 14. And when I was 16, I was told, "You will have a farmhouse." I looked around, thought, what? That's weird. I'll have a farmhouse. No, I don't bug it. I was told then in 1969, right? It was July or September. It's time to find your wife. I thought I was going to pick Burke up again. I know exactly where I was in Cardiff. We'd done a gig in Tredegar, October the 15th, 1969. It was a Wednesday night. And 4 girls walked in. When I see my wife, I knew that was the girl I was marrying. All right? And we've been married now, 54 years. All right? So I've had so many things come in. And I've helped so many people on a spiritual level. And I've been blessed. I'm still doing my music now in my studio. I'm writing rock and roll songs, all sorts of stuff. I'm doing videos, you know, and all because I can. I got no intentions to do anything with them. People say, oh, no, I'm not doing anything with them. Do you know why? It's for me, my friends, my family. Right? I put a family video out. Mm-hmm. In my one book, my autobiography, I said on the end of it, like the one headstones, graves. I said, Ray Phillips, the 1st of 3rd, 1949. Right? And on the last part of my book, I said, I'll leave you to finish it off. That was great. At the beginning of my book, I said, it's called Ray Phillips, Ray Phillips, an awful biography from Tredegar, or from Budgie to Tredegar and Beyond. Uh-huh. Budgie, Tredegar, and the Beyond was an album called Beyond. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I come up with when Chris Pike put it all together, and he said Ray Phillips autobiography, I said no, I don't want that. It's too elitist. What do you want to call it? I said I call it an awful biography. Right? And then inside the book on the early pages, I said, if you bought this book, don't blame me, because I told you at the beginning it's an awful biography. When I was 14, I ran away. When I was 12, my mother left home. She didn't leave home. My father saw this. He forced it out. He didn't mind it about. And she was a nurse. And my sister, they went. And I was 12, and I was standing outside, and my mom was with my mother. And my twin brother, it was with me. And my mother went. And I thought, what about us? Where are you going, man? And she went. Yeah. She had to go. She couldn't stay and be beaten about all the time. And that's what she did. My father said to me, if I ever find out you've been to see your mother, I'll beat you to a standstill. And he meant it. All right. But I decided to run away. All right. If I went to try and see my mother, right, or me and my brother, we'd hide behind posts, in people's gardens, behind walls, in case my father drove up in his car. All right. And it wasn't nice. I finally went. So anyway, I'm in Cardiff city centre, and the police found me. I slept on the Taff embankments by the Welsh Stadium. Right, that's where they play bread fan when they have a rugby match. They play bread fan at the beginning. I slept across the bank by the River Taff that night. When the police found me, police officer, he said, asked what I was doing, and I ran away. He said, where do you want me to take you? He took me to my mother's flat. But I went to my mother's flat. My mother wouldn't take me in because she had nothing, no furniture, anything. And so the cop said, look, I'll take him back to his father. The cop took me back. He knocked my father's door, and he said, and I opened the door. He looked at me, he pointed at me, said, get in the house. And I knew if I went in the house, I would have a beating. I was 12. I was only little. My photo is in my book, and I was gone. That cop, he called me up in his black police car, and it's like the old-fashioned police car with bells going, ding, 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 ding. He said, jump in the car, Raymond. He took me back to my mother. He said, Mrs. Phillips, your son has nowhere to go. So she took me in. She didn't understand, neither did anyone, for that hour, my life would be not this, it would affect me for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I never thought about it. In those days, it's how it was for children. Fathers would beat their mothers, and it was not nice. But anyway, the same day, he sent my twin brother down to live with us. So that was that. Then when I was 16, and my mother said, won't like Christmas. When I was 15, my brother said, he'd like to set drums. And I said to him, what do you want to set drums for? What do you do with them? And he didn't have a set. When I was 16, my mother said, well, look, drum for Christmas, Ray. That, son. I said, a set of drums, ma'am. So she bought me a set of drums. That was in 1966. That costed £100. and she was a nurse. And I remember her wages then was about £12, £13 a week. It wasn't much, right? And she bought me the drums, right? So anyway, I had the drums now. I got on them, and I just played them. All I had to do was learn to get better. Now, one day, I'm sitting on the wall at Tommy House, lovely sunny day, and there was a place called the Derby and Joan. That's where all old people would go for dinners, for little, they go together to meet there. And as I walked past, I found a pile of money, all rolled up with elastic band around there. And I picked it up, I put it in my pocket, and I went and sat on my wall outside the house. Right? And I thought, I'll wait by you now, see if anyone comes out looking for it. Eventually, it was about, I don't know, quarter of an hour later, these old people come out. And they were all looking around the streets for this money. Right? And it was all rolled up. And I went in, I walked and I said, are you looking for this? And I give them their money. Right? And do you know what the bastards done? They give me £1. But it was all right. I always brought our kids up the same way, exactly the same. But I can tell you now, spiritually, there is no such things as two sides of a story. What there is, there are two opinions, either end of the scale. Right in the middle is the truth. So if you want to talk about a story, take one person on one side. I smashed a shop window and stole a guitar. I took that guitar, I stole it to give to Tonym Bourgem, a 335. Not for me. I was doing something for Tony. The police caught me. They gave me a good kicking, gave me a good beating twice. They put me in a police cell, right? And in the one thing I done, like I said, at least they give me room for the night. Right? So when I look back, I had to go on what they call probation. I did for 2 years. When I met the probation officer, he said to me, well, tell me, Raymond, what happened? And I told him. And he said, so what was your life like when you were young? And I told him I'd run away. Yeah. So the police side of the story is I stole a guitar, right? And they found drugs on me, tablets, hay fever tablets, right? And they called me a junkie and give me a punch, right? I had hay fever, right? And their story was, I was a bad bastard. When I spoke to the probation officer, he said to me, so, okay then, Ray, I went there for about 3 months. His name was Mr. Bryce, the probation officer, and he said to me, Raymond, you don't need to come here anymore. There is nothing wrong with you. You're a decent person. Yeah. You had a bit of a bad start in your life. Yeah. So the chances are, because you were taken down that road with all the beatings of the family, that you've seen something, you've done something as a reaction to the way you were brought up. You already know this, so I don't need to see you again. I've never forgot him, and I've never forgot that police officer. When I was a nipper, my life was terrible. The bullying, the beatings, but it was, you just took it for granted. And I realized then, the truth you got to face now, Ray, is the truth. And that was, your father wasn't a nice man. Yeah. And he beat your mother. She had to leave the house. But then, when my dad was 74, 75, right, he had dementia come in. Right? I didn't know what dementia was, but he'd done weird things. I was out with him one day, took him out shopping, and I said, Dad, why don't you come and live with me and Carol? I can't come and do that, son. You know, I can't come and live with, two young people like you, and we were 40. And I said, okay, Dad. Then I had a phone call one Christmas. He'd fallen down outside the house, right? And he'd broken his ankles. Right? I went to Cardiff, and then my father's life, he didn't have a life. His life was gone. Outside the fact, he had to be looked after. So he brought him to our place, and I was just finishing one extension. Our granny flat, we call it. It was a grampy flat. I finished the extension, and we had our father come live with us. My father lived with us for 5 years. Yeah, 5 years with dementia. There was times I had great laughs with him. There was times I sat down privately and cried. I had to face the fact your life was hard going at the beginning. That's why you had to be the best drummer in the world. That's why you had to achieve. That's why you had to do this and do that. And now we got a lovely big farmhouse. We've done so much. I looked after my father-in-law. I told my wife, if ever your dad ends up with dementia, I'll look after him. And I did that for 2 years. And of course, so did his family. They're a lovely family, and it's a big family. But everyone in the family was working. But now, I'm not working. And I had a great time with him. I'd go up there, I'd take my Telecaster up there, I'd restring it, and have a couple of cans of lager, and I'd put my head down, and I'd go to sleep if my father-in-law would let me. Yeah? It was a joy to look after him. It was a joy to look after my father. Yeah? And I've had a fabulous life through all this stuff. The music was the one thing that took me away from all the pain and upset. And whilst I was in Budgie, one of the things that stands out a lot was it was either by Burke or Tony, they'd call me a shifty bastard. And what I realised was running Budgie on the business side of it was hard going. We never had money worth talking about. Yeah. Burke would get upset. We had a big Mercedes van, and the bulkhead of the van was right virtually up to behind the driver's seats. So I pushed it halfway down the van. We got all our gear in, and I made sleeping space for 5 people in the front of the van. After I was out of the band, Burke said, and he moved the bulkhead on the van, but he didn't tell me. But you slept in there. Not only did you sleep in there, on one tour, you decided to bring your dog to stay with us in the van. It wasn't acceptable, I had to tell him. Yeah, Burke wouldn't like that. Right? And there was so I don't know the business side of it. And I had a row with the band once. So I said, I tell you what then, with Tredegar. I said, I tell you what, Tom, you do the accounts. I said, Tom, you have the coach and maintain it. To Tom Prince, you do the accounts, Tom. I said to the singer, you get all the gigs. Right? None of them wanted to do it. But Tony had a great idea. He said, well, what if, he looked at the accounts book. It's in front of him to look at. And I said to him, that was the problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, in here, you've got down this money, you've got diesel, £50. I said, he said, you got food, £40, but we wasn't gigging. I said, we were gigging on the weekend. I got ready to go off on that tour. On Monday, I had the coach all ready. Yeah? And he said, well, what if we share the accounts between us? If we all take a turn each, which means we'd all do it in quarters. Right? And I said, okay, then, Tom, I'll have the last quarter, will I? Well, I don't know. I said, well, I wouldn't. Do you know what happened then, Tom? I'd have to sort out every mistake you made, every mistake Tom made, and every mistake Paul made. I'd have to put it all right. Whereas now, I get all right accounted anyway. So I run the business of the band. And when it came down to the end of it, everyone in the band walked away and then you get a monkey's toss about the fact that me and Carol ended with all this debt, And when I look back, I think, and you one of the guys, they used to call me Shifty. And me and Carol lost £25,000. If that don't tell you something about me and about my wife, nothing ever will. We've always been decent people. And if I get it wrong, I'm quite happy to say I got it wrong. In one interview, one guy, he was talking about Budgie, and what he said was, blah, blah, this and blah, they're doing really well. They got the 3rd album out, and they sacked the drummer because he wanted to become more commercial, so the band can make more money. He's got to be the first drummer that's had been kicked out of the band for wanting to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
But what I said was, I didn't say that. What I said was, I didn't want the band to become commercial. I wanted the band to become more famous.
Yeah.
We didn't have to alter the music. The music was great. Yeah? All we had to do was get out to a bigger audience. And my basis for that was, look where Judas Priest got to, and look where Budgie ended up. And Judas Priest were the band that supported us on all our tours.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had good stories with them about that band.
I like to ask about parents. I think you were asked about this song many times, but when I listen to such songs that are, we can say, classic of rock classic, I know, like Child in Time, like the songs that are very monumental, for example, Uriah Heep have this not easy living, the song July Morning, for example, and Parents also is the one of the songs that is very monumental, long, and it gets you to other, I can say, dimension, other world. It's just you listen to it and some of memories comes to your mind. And how you remember anyway, creation process and recording of Parents.
Okay, right. Just a couple of quick facts for you. When we recorded the third album, it took 4 days, and that cost £450 to do that album. When we done Squawk, that took 5 days, and that cost something like £960 thereabouts. When we done the third album, that cost approximately £1,200 and took about 6-7 days. These are facts that people get wrong on everything. Okay, so that was that. When we come to do so on Parents, right, I've only ever found one drummer, right, that plays the drum roll on Parents properly. One drummer. I've seen him on the internet. Right? All the others got it wrong. So about Parents, the drumming to start with on the beginning, right? It's more like a blues type of drumming, a roll. Yeah. And when I do the roll, there's like these pauses because I'm playing between Burke and Tony. I always love classical music. I always fill spaces in as opposed to just play a 4/4 beat, you know. And so there was a woman, on the internet again, a lady, red-haired lady. She was told to listen to Parents, and she listened to it. And within literally, I'd say 6 or 7 seconds of her playing it, she stopped it and she said, "Nobody told me this drum would go wild at the beginning of it." Right? No, but I understand what she's saying from her point of view. It's a big drum roll, and when I'd done all that, we went through there, played the number, then I got into doing the drumming through the song, right? And when I was doing that drumming, it was like, what can I do to keep this interesting? You know, the only thing I do is the drumming. Yeah, and I didn't know. And there's one or two mistakes. There was one mistake I made on it, and I thought, I won't change that because it's too good. It's too good to mess about with that one bit. Yeah, one beat. So that's it. But that was a big number. Yeah. And then it goes from the big rock part into the blues part. But it drops down, and that lovely, lovely guitar Tony's playing. Dee 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 dee. Yeah. Fabulous guitar playing. Tony was a blues player, right? But he used to love soul music as well. And when he got into play, he loved Peter Green. He was a blues player. Yeah. But now he's getting the opportunity to turn his talent into playing rock music with a blues edge onto it. Yeah. Burke found himself in a band where we were doing so much. And so we're going through Parents. It was a fabulous song to record. Fabulous because I could lay back as a drummer and I could just ride on Tony's guitar playing. Yeah. And then it accentuate with Burke's bass playing. Yeah. It was an absolutely great album to do. When we done, if I pick on one in the group for Tie Fitter's Hand, when it comes to the end, right, it's supposed to be, it's all 4/4, basically, 4/4/4 all the way through. But when it comes to the last part, I came in on 3, right? And Tony came in on 4, and Burke came in on 5, right? I said to Roger Bain, Rog, I made a mistake there, mate. He said, well, let's have a listen to it. Yeah. When the studio, we played it back. No, was it on that one? Was Roger there? But when the studio, and he said, it sounds excellent. All right. 1, 2, 3 instead of 4/4/4. It's excellent. I do a lot of that in my own recordings now. Yeah. I'm just recording one number. That's when I saw the train. And I realized that I'd done all these guitars, I think 3 bass guitars, 6 guitars, and the 7th guitar, I came in 1 bar late. I thought, I'm not changing all this for that. So what I done was I just sung through the song. I come to the end of the particular part. I started singing the song a bit earlier. And when I got to where it was wrong, right, I stopped singing early. I left two lines out of it. Yeah. Then I went to the chorus. And I thought, well, that suits me. If somebody got a problem playing it later on, that's their problem, not mine. The Parents was that album was, it was a joy to be doing an album. But I knew at that point in time, my days were numbered with the band. Yeah. So from that point of view, it was hard going for me. Yeah. And in the end, I got too much. It was always me and Burke arguing, not Tony. And it just got the place where Burke couldn't hack it anymore. So it was either me or Burke. And I was gone. But it was all right. Yeah. I walked into a music shop then years later, and they just brought out the 5th album. And in this music shop, record shop, they were playing this number. And I thought I could do the drumming on that so well. Yeah. And basically a lot was in 4/4. And when it came to one part, I thought, if I was playing the drums there, I'd be playing to Burke's bass. It went dan da 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 bam 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 ba da 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 da. The bass would go bam da 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 bum 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 bam ba da da da. Do you know the song?
From the Bandolier album?
House Rules.
House. In the house. Yeah. House
So,
rules.
what I did, because I like classical music, a lot of the drumming I done was based around the idea of classical music and drums filling in spaces that need to be filled in, but not with just 4/4 beats. You know, adding extra things in. And my drums, they were all. I had the snare drum, the top tom tom, and the floor tom tom. Right. So you had center, left, and right. And when we in the first recording, I thought, that's excellent, that is. Because now, if I want to, I know that's left and that's right. So I can play my drums with the speakers in mind. And I'm playing and it's going back. It was excellent. My drums are bouncing around the speakers. Okay? I might do a straight roll around the snare drum, on the top tom tom, on the floor tom tom. And that was great. Then I might just go a tap on the floor, the top, and the snare. Yeah. To make it more interesting. But I learned so much. And when Dave Howells said what he said about me in the studio, I wasn't just part of the band or the music. I was part of the engineering. I loved it. So Parents was a phenomenal number to play. And when I done on stage in Budgie, oh, brilliant. When me and Tony done in Tredegar, it was brilliant. I put that akin to doing Evil Woman by Spooky Tooth. So going back to further, it was a joy to record that number. I remember it was fabulous. But mixed in with the any bad vibes or whatever, right? When I look back at that, I can honestly say it was a joy to do that album. I cut out the nasty stuff. And the same as I had to, after that conversation I told you about, I had to realize that, Ray, you had a bad upbringing. Face the truth. I face the truth and I feel much better for it. So that was a great album to record.
Have you also, because I think with Ton Budgie, you also play songs from the later Budgie albums, yeah? Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yeah.
You also play that songs that you hadn't recorded with Budgie, yeah?
Yeah.
Why you decided, because you like that songs, yeah? That's why you want to play them, yeah? What's the reason why you choose to play these songs?
Because they were great songs. But
Yeah.
we done Napoleon in Tredegar. Tony was in the band.
Yeah.
And I remember then there was somebody said about somebody was pissed off, if I say, because I recorded a version of Napoleon Bonaparte with me on drums. I thought, I'm not pissed off because Metallica recorded Bread Fan. It's stupid. If somebody, don't mess about, record anything you like. But so I done those when we were on stage with Judas Priest, they would come on stage with us at the end of the night and they do an encore with us. Yeah, we were so close. We had so many things going. I remember staying at their place. We'd stay in their place in Birmingham, and if they come down to Wales, they stay with us. It was so close. And I think perhaps I should have joined Judas Priest after I left Budgie, because they were looking for a drummer. And the reason I didn't was because I had everything I wanted in life. I didn't need to confuse my life with being in another rock band. But once I'd done all the stuff I had done, and I'd say one of the pinnacles of being in a rock band was when we had a tour coming off, right? And this was with me, a guy called Jason on bass, and I can't remember if that was Ray Phillips Band or Ton Budgie. We always cheat. And the guitarist we had, he decided to just walk away. All right, and it was we didn't have a guitarist, and this tour was starting in a fortnight's time. The chance of finding a guitarist was nothing. All right, and Jason, the bass player, said to me, Ray, why don't you let Justin, my son, why don't you have him to do the gig with us? I said, he wouldn't be up to the gig. He wouldn't be up to the standard. He said, Ray, your son is a brilliant guitarist. Right? And I said, but the other problem he got then is, Dad, I'm his dad. Why do you want to play with me in a band? He'd play with his mates. So I said, Justin, do you fancy that tour with us? All right then, Dad. He learned the set. We went off. The first gig we done, everybody who wanted to come to meet the band, they wanted to speak to Justin. He was so good. He done all the fancy Eddie Allen shredding. He done everything. And it was great because I was able to sit back and relax, sitting behind the PA, having a pint of beer myself, just looking at the crowd, just drinking. And Justin getting his credit. It was fabulous. That was one of the pinnacles. And Justin was a great guitarist. I got great songs he written. Remember the guy from PRS come here once? And he was listening to some of the stuff, and I played a few Justin's songs, and he said, those songs that your son have written, they're absolutely brilliant. You should get them out there to a record company. But I couldn't be asked. You know why? That boat that sailed years and years ago. Yeah. But I still got them there. So doing those numbers, Napoleon was great. What was the other ones he's done? Tire Fitters, that was great. Hot as Dog's Armpit. And when we first put Tredegar together, Tony didn't want to play any Budgie stuff. Tony's part of the game. We got to. Yeah. In the end, we did. And it turned out really, really well until that all fell apart.
Are you still in touch with Tony?
No, I haven't spoken to Tony for years and years and years. Tony's got his own little studio in his house, and he's got his own. Yeah, he does his own things. He got some stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
On YouTube, his songs. Yeah, and that's great. But
I
had to draw the lines my own sanity, you know, and understanding. Like I had to, when I went back to my father and all those days, I had to face the fact that in his time as a father, my father wasn't a great father. He's a bit cruel. But then I got to the point there where I spoke to Tony for a long time after he left the band. But then a few things happened. I thought, I can't do this anymore. This shouldn't have happened like this. Not Tony leaving the band, but a couple of words were said, and it's a couple of things that happened, and it shouldn't have. And I pulled them, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. So whatever Tony and myself had going, I thought, I got to just stop it. I can't. I just stepped away. I basically stepped away from all my time with anything to do with Budgie. Because I'm a lot older, and I say to people at Budgie, and they'll say, oh, who's that? Well, we were there, we were young, we done it, and the world have changed so much.
Yes.
In this in that 50 years.
Yeah.
In the last 60 years. But what I find really upsetting and even more frightening is today the world is a completely different world to what it was before Donald Trump got in power. I would love to play in Poland. I would have loved it. Burke played there a few times. Yeah. And they loved Budgie. Budgie was the first rock band to ever play in Poland, if I got it right.
Yeah.
Then I seen Burke do an interview with a chap in Poland, a young lad. And I thought Burke, when he went there to do this interview, when he was in Poland, I'm not sure, what it was, they had a do in Poland, and they picked out the first pop star in Poland, the first rock band to play in Poland, and they might have had the first artist and first person to write the book. But it was something like that. And they were celebrating this, right? Well, when Burke was going over there, I said, Paul, let me tell you something. So when you go over there, tell Burke to think about what he's saying, and if nothing else, keep his mouth shut. He'd done this interview, and all I can tell you is there was one Budgie fan seen the interview, and he said, I was a big Budgie fan until I heard that interview. He said, no more. I want nothing to do with them. Burke became a bit racist. And it was a mistake. And he obviously didn't care. He just said what he said. I say what I say, but I'm not that daft that I'd say things that people would lift their eyes up. There's no such thing as bad language, so I don't mind using what they call bad language in a funny way. I'd never swear into somebody's face or call them a name with effing and being. I wouldn't do it. It's wrong. And that lad, a young lad, and I'm listening. I said, Burke, he's a young kid who's trying to achieve something. You've got you. Give him the respect of letting him ask questions and answer, but no, it was awful. And then I thought to myself, it's time to pull away from the whole Budgie life, but not the Budgie reputation, because that was fabulous. And I'm happy in my own studio, my own thing. If I need lead playing, if I can't do myself, I'll find something else. But I do all the bass playing, I do all the drumming, all the singing, I write the songs. I love it. It's enough for me. And I keep saying every day, once you, and before I go to bed, I'll say, just remember, God, I said, lots of stuff I got to do before I go. I got to make sure all this sorted out for my family. I got to make sure all my music is done. I did all these videos for my family, my great-grandchildren, I was telling my great-grandchildren, I'll finish now. Enya, she's a beautiful looking girl. And she's just going on, just going on 10, right? And very intelligent. They both speak 2 languages. Both of that. They speak speak fluent Welsh, and of course they speak English. And I go up and I'm chatting with her in bed, and I said, so, you know, and she'll say dull things. I'm laughing with her, and she looked at me one day. She was laying in bed, and she looking at me, and she put her fingers by my mouth. She said, Dad, did you really run away from home? I said, well, I did once. She said, well, that was naughty. I said, it was, love. I said, and do you know when you're older one day, I'll tell you the story if you want to. Oh, that would be nice. But I've done it all in a book. I wrote a book for my family, all about my family. My family, Cal's family, you know, and I give them all a copy of the book, of that book. And it cost thousands. But I wanted to do it. It was worth it. The money didn't matter.